What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, Little GoLow podcast. Live. Well, you're not listening live, but we're up here in Lake Tahoe where Marty Fish just won. Maybe because Steph Curry's over in Paris. The American Century. We had the Scottish Open. Bob McIntyre gets his second win of the year, having a hell of a season. Won once with his dad on the bag, which was one of the cooler moments of the year. Then wins his National Open that leads us right in to what us Americans call the British Open. I know across the pond they call it the Open Championship, last major of the year. Really hard to beat. It's been a star-studded major season, right? Scottie wins the Masters, Xander wins the PGA, Bryson wins a historic U.S. Open going head-to-head with Rory, and now really all the cast of characters heading into this British Open at Royal Troon, which had a memorable finish back in 2016, which we'll dive into coming up. But I want to dive into some of the headlines right off the bat, some of the biggest headlines this weekend. Your boy was hot because at the U.S. Open, I turned $150 into a little over 18 G's. And I'm not saying I'm going to do it again, but I got one that's pretty tasty. I got one that's pretty tasty. So we'll dive into some gambling. We'll just dive into what I love about this tournament. It was somewhat on display last weekend at the Genesis, the Scottish Open, and a couple other just news and notes. Obviously, Keegan, the Ryder Cup captain. We had Colin Montgomerie kind of calling out Tiger that he should retire. It's not fun to watch him. And of course, your mailbag questions on at GoLow Pod. Fire in those DMs and we will get to you. Very, very easy to get involved with the show. Just go to at GoLow Pod. And other than that, let's enjoy ourselves and talk a little golf. But before we do, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this show, Gametime. Been using them for a while. I know many of you are as well. You know what's right around the corner? I mean, literally right around the corner. A little thing we like to call football. And if you want to go to a football game this fall, college, pro, my boy Tim Skipper, because Jeff Tedford just stepped down, was named the head coach of the Fresno State Bulldogs. I might have to get a Bulldog game. Got one last year. Waved to my guy Skipper as an assistant. Now he's the head coach. So if you want to go to a game, there's nothing better than going to a college game on Saturday because, depending on where you live for NFL, but NFL games are sweet. Been to a ton of them over my life. Cannot recommend these guys. Gametime. Go check them out right now. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN. That's my name for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Where do we start? I was going to start just my overall love of this tournament, but then I thought, let's play the hits here. And I think there are three major storylines going into this tournament. First and foremost, he's having a historic season. Many are comparing him to a guy that goes by Eldrick, Tiger Woods. And he's an elite player. It's his season, once he got arrested, went to a different universe. But I saw reports a couple weeks ago, and people have talked about this on a lot of the golf podcasts, that him and Morikawa, for example, are 10% more accurate off the tee. Why? Technology is stupid. And I benefit from that technology. I mean, with my swing, I would never break 80, but because of the ability to hit these clubs that even when you miss, go straight or not that far left or right, you can shoot much lower scores. And no one benefits more than that right now than the pros. Let's face it, the two best players of my life, Phil and Tiger, could not hit it straight off the tee. Could not do it. I saw someone describe Tiger. You know the crazy thing about him? He sprayed it all over the place in most tournaments. Yet the last 9 holes, he would hit 3-wood and he would hit 2-iron and he wouldn't miss a fairway. Right? Well, in this modern day golf, a 28-year-old Tiger would be hitting at 340 yards and he'd be in the fairway the majority of the time. But to me, for Scottie to truly be compared to Tiger, no matter what happens this weekend, he could miss the cut. He's going to be the player of the year. It's been well reported how much money he's already made. Hell, his caddy has made more money than the majority of guys on the PGA Tour. And newsflash, caddies get about 10% of their players' earnings. I do think he needs to win this weekend. Like, you can't compare him to Tiger, not when you factor in the equipment, because in 2000, like, Tiger's had seasons where he wins multiple majors. And most of the great all-time players have had those seasons. And Scottie has a very great opportunity to be in that conversation. But to do it, you got to go across the pond and win. And it's been well documented. Like, let's face it, Scottie might win Augusta 5 times in his life. I mean, it's very, very possible, right? What, Phil's won it 3 times. Tiger's won it 5 times. He's going to play well there. Like, that's going to happen. And eventually he'll knock off a PGA or a U.S. Open. But is he going to win this weekend? That's what's unique about this tournament, right? Because the elements come into play. It brings in a lot of random guys into play. We've had random winners over the years. And a little like Augusta, under that umbrella of certain guys play Augusta really well. Like Phil Mickelson at 60 years old, would it be shocking if he like top 20'd, right? But he's not going to top 20 at 60 years old. Hell, he's not going to make the cut probably at any other tournament in the majors. I don't know how Live operates, but they don't have a cut, so he will play into the weekend. But you know what I mean? And I like history. I've said it forever. I watch sports not for the randos, not for the overachievers. Like, I like watching Michael Jordan. I loved watching Tiger Woods. I loved watching Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. I like watching it for the great players. That's why I like watching Scottie Scheffler, because every time you turn on the TV, you think he's going to win. But when we talk about history and we talk about getting in this like iconic class of Jack, Arnie, I mean, and Tiger, I'm sorry, you got to do it this year. And to do it, I mean, win this championship. And who knows? If he doesn't get arrested on that rainy Kentucky morning, maybe he wins the U.S. Open. That clearly threw him off. Or excuse me, the PGA. The U.S. Open, he was off. Shit, it happens. Right? It will be, no one will even mention Pinehurst if he wins this weekend. But if he doesn't and he finishes like 17th, great season. He'll probably win the FedEx and turn into like an NBA player salary. Like the guys that are going to make in 2027 when he makes $60 million on the golf course. But to be an absolute legend, you got to go to Royal Troon and win. The guy who's got a chance to be a legend is Bryson. And I think he is fascinating coming into this bad boy, because the Live guys, once a major ends, they disappear. Now, Bryson doesn't totally, because you can find him on YouTube and it's pretty enjoyable to watch. It's very, very entertaining. But if you told me I could have anyone win it this weekend, I'm not going to put any money on Bryson, but I think that'd be pretty fascinating. Now, when you look at his career record across the pond, it has not been good. Beside a T8 at the Open when Cam Smith, knocked off Rory a couple years ago, which at the time would have been the biggest bet I'd ever hit, would have made me like $6,000, and Rory couldn't make a putt to save his life. Bryson finished T8, but in every other time that he's been at the Open Championship, he's never finished better than T33. So it's not like he has a ton of success, a little like Scheffler. So, like, I don't know. I just think he's pretty fascinating this weekend because he's such a wild card. If he's just playing at the level he's been playing, you can spray it a little, right? At Open Championships in general, depending. It's a little like Pinehurst. You've got to keep your fingers crossed. And short game is huge. Short game is massive. Well, we saw at Pinehurst. His wedges around the green are elite. And here's the thing with Bryson. He's a really, really good putter. Now, the thing with these courses in Ireland and Scotland, if you watched last weekend at the Genesis, this ain't Pinehurst. This isn't Augusta. Greens aren't concrete because they have to play them a little longer and slower because of the setup of these tournaments and because of the weather. At any moment, we got a little siren flying by. Hopefully it's not a firefighter. Knock on wood, or firemen. We got fires up here in Tahoe. But yeah, I don't know what else to say beside I can't wait to just see what Bryson does. And I think that's where he's at right now in this sport. You could argue like Scottie's got more on the line in the sense of like he's chasing a true Tiger season. Bryson's just, I got to tune in. I said this about him at the U.S. Open. I'll say it about him this weekend, and it's going to be this way moving forward as long as he's playing like this. He's got a Barry Bonds quality. Barry in his heyday, in the steroid days, The baseball writers hated it. Do you know who didn't? Us, the fans, us, the consumer. Because when he came up to the plate, we fucking turned it on and could not move. And most of the time, that ball went flying. And a lot of them flew way over the fence. And that's how I feel like with Bryson. The difference is, it's like he has the Barry power. Clearly, whatever he was on, he ain't on it anymore. But he also has the touch. It's like he's a great slap hitter. He can run. Like he's kind of become a five-tool player. And last but not least, Rory McIlroy. And I watched a decent amount on Saturday. He was playing pretty good. He looks pretty good. I thought after a week passed, that thing wasn't going to derail him. That was the most biggest letdown of the last couple years, clearly for him, missing that putt and then Bryson hitting that bunker shot. But Rory ain't 24. He's been through the ringer. I would expect him to play well this weekend. The one pushback I would have, and this is just a bigger picture with the sport moving forward. Some call it an activity. I call it a sport. Really one of the only things I've ever been good at. And you could argue how good I am, but decent can beat the majority of players. Is that Rory said that when he stormed out and did he regret not speaking to the media? And, essentially not what he said was not at all. He didn't say I don't owe you anything, but you guys were the least of my worries. And that's kind of the problem with the sport of golf. Because after you win or lose a Super Bowl, after you win or lose a World Series, after Steph Curry and the Warriors lost 3-1 to LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers, they talk. It isn't about the media. I got news for you. The legacy media is dying by the day. So it's not about them. It's about what they say and then what the fan gets to consume. Because the fan is the guy providing all the money to all of this because of the TV. That the TV money is providing all the cash. And that's what makes everything interesting, is the agony of defeat. We talk so much about the triumph and winning and the championships and big time victories. You could argue devastating losses are equally as interesting. Could argue they're more. I think I said after the U.S. Open, a choke job might be more fascinating than a great win. The 07 Patriots losing to Eli. They could not complete the undefeated season. 28-3. Matt Ryan and Kyle Shanahan. Comes up all the time. Obviously, in the world of golf, John Vandervelde and Greg Norman. Greg Norman got a 30 for 30 on that Masters. And I was young at the time and watching it. It's like, God, that is pretty great. Lose a 6-shot lead on Sunday? 6-shot lead? Now, Rory didn't lose a 6-shot lead. He had a 2-shot lead and Bryson had 6 or 7 holes left. And he had 6 because they kept saying Rory has 5. Well, Bryson was a group behind him. But when you talk after that and show your emotions, that's probably the most fascinating thing that can happen. What are you really going to say? What are Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown saying after they win? Right? We've been together this is awesome. This is sweet. We're going to enjoy this, the grind, all the stuff, which they deserve to say. But when you look at the other side, when the Denver Nuggets lost in Game 7, kind of want to hear from Jokic, even though he doesn't have much to say. What's his reaction? And that's a thing golf has to figure out, because right now the players control it. And I get it. It's an individual sport. But if you really want to become this entity that they're trying to become, you can't just run away. Cam Newton, after he got embarrassed in the Super Bowl, wasn't allowed just to run to the bus. It's not allowed, because in that business, we all have rules and obligations in the business we're in that we cannot avoid, because some make sense, some don't, but a lot of them contribute to the vehicles that we're in to make the money. That's the whole point of this. Every golf course in America, private, semi-private, have these club championships. And I got news for you. A lot of really good players play in them all over America. No one gives a flying you-know-what about any of them outside that little bubble. Because all of us on the couch watching that U.S. Open, for as cool as it was to watch Bryson after, I would have been more interested to sit down and watch a Rory press conference, even if it went 2 minutes and 50 seconds. It has nothing to do with the golf media sitting there with their recorders. That they are not they're irrelevant to the whole thing. They really are in terms of that moment. And clearly Rory and all these golfers, they just don't get that. And in fairness to a lot of golfers, historically, they've all faced the music after. And Rory didn't. And I think that moving forward like that cannot happen. It really can't, because that U.S. Open has to be one of the biggest moments since Tiger won the Masters in 2019. So over the last essentially 5 seasons of majors, now 2020 was a little wonky, but you know what I mean. Could argue that's the second biggest moment in the sport. And you could argue non-Tiger and Phil, like that's the most famous guy. He doesn't even talk. And that can't be the case. When Michael Jordan beat Charles Barkley, guess what? Charles had to sit there and, I hate face the music because it's not even about the questions. It's just express his emotion, which is unreal for the people that literally just watched, that their time provides the compensation that all these guys get. So I think Rory's going to play well. I definitely think he can win it. Now, you could argue you'd be crazy to bet on him to win it, which I think is fair because he hasn't won one in a long time. But I think the conversation and the narrative that, like, it's never going to happen, like, bullshit. I believe it's going to happen. And whether it's this year, next year, in the next couple of years, if he keeps playing like this, it was like Xander. Everyone's like, Xander's a choker. Xander can't do it. Well, he's like top 10, top 5 in all these majors. So eventually, he's going to win one. And what happened? He won at Valhalla.
Forget what the calendar says. Football season is right around the corner. And that means Best Ball Week at DraftKings isn't far behind. Here's what you need to know. DraftKings Best Ball Millionaire Contest is their biggest fantasy contest ever. We're talking 15 million guaranteed prize pool with 2. That's right, 2 millionaires being crowned for the first and second place. If you're a set it and forget it type, I know I am, then Best Ball is for you. No waiver wires, no roster management, bigger rosters, so injuries will not ruin your season. Only the draft, and that's it. You're set for the year. Some of you might have heard I won $18,000 a couple weeks ago at the U.S. Open. It's an incredible high. But $15 million in prize pool, how do you beat that? Multiple millionaires crowned with winning this. I can't even imagine the high being in the mix. And like they said, no roster management, injuries won't impact you because you got bigger rosters. Still not convinced? Check this out. This year, DraftKings is offering everyone a draft one, get one special. Your $20 entry fee scores you a bonus ticket. Get ready for Best Ball Week at DraftKings. Download the DraftKings app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for all customers who enter the NFL Best Ball 15 Millionaire Contest to get a bonus ticket. Only during Best Ball Week, only on DraftKings.
We didn't do a golf podcast last week, but it was announced that Keegan Bradley is the captain for the Ryder Cup. And takes were flying because I think the biggest thing is no one saw it coming. Keegan Bradley literally said, I had no clue till they called me. Now, obviously, in the golfing world, Keegan was front and center because last year he wasn't picked for multiple guys who had not been playing as well. And the old boys club, everyone's friends, and then the Netflix show showing Zach Johnson having dinner with basically Ricky, JT, and Spieth and their wives kind of hanging out. And it felt like a rigged deal. And obviously Keegan loves the Ryder Cup. I think in 2012, when they lost, he still hasn't unpacked his bags. I think certain people are more patriotic than others. That's just a reality of life. And I think a lot of, I guess I can only speak from myself, when you have family members that were in the military, it'll change over time, right? A lot of baby boomers, literally all their parents or all their dads were associated with World War II. Depending on your age, either your grandpa or your father was associated with Vietnam. My grandparents both fought in World War II. My dad's brother was killed in Vietnam. Patriotism, America, it's obviously very associated with the military. It's just a huge part of my family. I take a lot of pride in this country because of the opportunities it's open for me. I mean, my mom worked at the state capitol in Sacramento. My dad was a farmer. And because of where we live, I I was able to work in football, and now I have a podcast, and then I worked in radio. Like, it's just these opportunities that arise because of where I live are pretty special, and I don't take that for granted. And I have a lot of appreciation for a lot of people, and I admire a lot of people that take a lot of pride in this country. And Keegan Bradley clearly does. And this event means a lot to him. And the Zach Johnson thing that happened last year there's no other way to put it. It was an embarrassment. And it's why Zach Johnson at the Waste Management, they were lighting him up like a Christmas tree. And what did he do? He snapped. He couldn't take it. You know why? Because everyone laughs at him. And listen, it's not personal. I think for most people, even though when if you follow the sport of golf, you say Zach Johnson, you think a truly geeky guy. But to go over there, to act like he did, to build the team like he did, and just to get smoked, it felt like a guy completely over his head that had no business doing that. Now, it's not like Keegan was going to be the captain of the team, but it felt like one guy that would have just – honestly, Bryson's the same way. Like, well, let's face it, Bryson's a pretty patriotic guy. And when I view Bryson's going to be on the team, like, that's not even – no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But I like the selection a lot because you had to go. You couldn't keep doing what you were doing. And just like, well, who's another player who's like 48 years old that kind of played in the Tiger and Phil era? Fuck that. Pick someone different. Now, could you have picked like Jordan Spieth or Justin Thomas? Those guys would probably deny it because they want to play. Tiger clearly turned it down, saying that his role working with the tour, he just wouldn't have the time. And again, like Tiger Woods trained with the Navy SEALs. Now, he didn't pay for their cheeseburgers, but it means a lot to him. Why? Dad, Green Beret, Vietnam. Like, it's part of the culture of his life. And for him to turn it down, I truly believe one day he's going to do it, you would think, but he truly doesn't have the time. Maybe he wants no part. It's at Bethpage. It's in New York. It's going to be a pretty big zoo, even though it's home, court advantage. Maybe he wants to wait till Olympic Club in 6 years to do it. I don't know, but I would assume Tiger will eventually be the captain. But I like picking a younger guy. I like picking a guy that I go, this event means everything to him. Like, listen, JT and Spieth, it means a lot. Those two guys, to me, at points in time in their life, are lock captains. And I would put Keegan, not that he's has the success they've had playing in the Ryder Cup, but in terms of their passion, like JT gets a lot of credit, rightfully so, because of how much it means to him, how much energy he brings, how fired up he gets about the event. It clearly strikes a chord deep in his soul. And I view Keegan the same way. And I think anytime you get someone like that, you have a chance. Now, you watch these Euros, man, they're good. Like, Bob McIntyre is good. Like, the way that guy's playing, Ludwig is a superstar. John Rahm, you would think eventually plays better. Fleetwood, baller. I mean, Lowry, like they got this notion that like, oh, we're just going to smoke them. Like, I don't know. Like, those days are kind of over. I don't view it like that at all. Obviously, we should win at home. It's usually what happens. Whoever wins at home, whoever wins on the road. I was listening to No Laying Up, and I agree with their take. I think Solly said this is you would assume that he gets multiple Ryder Cups. He gets one at home and he gets one away. And you never know if it doesn't go that well. Right? Zach Johnson didn't get the hell out of there. But I think it's exciting. And I think it's sometimes you can't always throw fastballs down the middle because it would have been easier. Like Stuart Sink, Jim Furyk, just keep doing like, no, it's time for a change. You don't need a huge change. What the hell's the difference? Some would argue that it's a little overrated as a captaincy. And you could say that like guys just got to play well. Now, clearly there's a lot of thought. There's the analytics that go into it. It's a really, really big event, which gets lost a little bit the time of the year because it's during football season. But if you love golf, like I know I do, like many people listening to this do, it's hard not to just change the channel over there and see what was going on. It was actually kind of nice being during football season last fall. It kind of ended immediately. Honestly, it felt like it was over during the first day. And that usually doesn't quite happen like that, but we got curb stomped. And I don't know if Keegan would have made a difference or not. Bryson, I think, surely would have. He's obviously a much better player than Keegan Bradley. But just guys, now they were sick, a lot of different variables. I think it's cool. So props on that move. And last but not least, Colin Montgomerie. He basically said that Tiger should retire. That why is he out there playing in these events when he has no chance to do anything. Absolutely no shot to compete. He's like, dude shot like 77, 82. What's he can't even finish some events. And my pushback on this is, in what world would any human being that gets to play anything for a living stop doing it? Now, if you can't break 95, I get it. But like, we've seen him. In the first couple days, he can float around par. I'm even talking separate from Augusta. Is he ever going to compete again? That's basically impossible. He never plays. It's why the report was a couple weeks ago or a month ago that he gets a full exemption into any designated events. It's irrelevant. He's not going to play any of them. Maybe, best case scenario, he plays one of those. But if he wants to play, he's not even 50 yet. Who cares? And here's the other thing. If he plays, people kind of pay attention. The expectations now aren't for him to compete. Aren't for him to compete at all. I would imagine if he plays 4 majors for the next 3 or 4 years, there will be one major on a Thursday or Friday where he just gets hot. You know why? That's golf. And all of a sudden you look up and Tiger's got 3 birdies in a row. Now, he'll eventually, even if you were to make that cut on that given major, probably still finish close to DFL. But for that moment, it's all worth it. It really is. And as the tour has changed, like they're never getting back what he was. Clearly. I mean, that ended years ago when the Genesis flipped over. But like, he still kind of matters. He doesn't matter nearly as much because he never plays. And the tour has moved on. And they've developed some new stars and are trying to develop more. But yeah, man, I think that if he wants to keep playing, who gives a shit? Let him keep playing. He's bored. What else is he going to do? Sit there and look at his bank account? Like, he can do that basically the majority of the year if he wants to. Business doesn't give him the high. He's been rich for 30 plus years now. He's been filthy rich for decades. I'm talking filthy rich. He's bored. He enjoys playing golf because it's true love. All he wants to do. And golf is not like Tom stopped playing football, not because he didn't like football. Tom Brady's addicted to football. Still, why do you think he's calling these games on Fox? Hell, Peyton Manning, same thing. Why do you think he's developed this company and does Monday Night Football? They love it. They're addicted. But in football, you literally can't play anymore. And you could get seriously injured. In golf, what's the worst going to happen? Shoot 82? He's done that before. People are going to laugh at him. And I've said this before. I think he likes doing it for his son. Because his son, who's 14, 15 years old, like, gets to see his dad just fucking grind. Because the older he gets, he's going to realize, like, my dad didn't have to do that. All I have to do is go to Wiki and look at my dad's resume and go, Pops, Dad, what are we doing here? Because this is what we do. We got nothing else to do, and we love playing golf. And all of us, if we were in that situation, because part of Montgomerie's thing was he looks miserable. Tiger's never really been Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky on the golf course. That's not really his style. Back when he was kicking everyone's butt, he wasn't Mr. Smiley. He wasn't Ricky Fowler out there. Neither was Tom Brady. Even Tom Brady said this. I saw, what, did he tell the Pivot guys this? Maybe it was going kind of viral in my reels when I was doing a little board scroll. Like, one thing he regrets a little bit as he got older was having a little more fun playing. I think you kind of are who you are. Like, my personality at 39, I've matured as a human being. I like to think I'm a better human being now, and I'll be better in 5 years, and I'll be better in 10 years. But, like, I'm not always Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. I was kind of like that at 20, kind of like that at 25, kind of like that at 30. Just like I've known some really happy people at 15, at 20, at 25. Like, they kind of just stay. Your personality is your personality. So, obviously, we would like to see him make more birdies. Making birdies are fun. But even if he was, I don't think he'd be just fist pumping everywhere at this point in time in his life. And part of the fist pumps were because he was winning. And the winning is never coming back. So I got no problem with him doing what he's doing. Okay, couple quick mailbag questions at GoLowPod, at GoLowPod. It's a Instagram, fire in those DMs if you got any questions. Because my bet, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. Here's my parlay. Ludwig, you can pick him to win. or top 5. The bold play would be to win, and then parlay him with Fleetwood and Hatton to top 20. If you wanted to get bold, you could go Ludwig win top 5 or win and go those two guys to top 10. But I have a hard time seeing Fleetwood and Hatton not in the top 20. The Ludwig thing, like, look at this guy. He played like crap on Sunday at the Genesis. Finished T4. At one point in time Saturday, at an engagement party, I looked up. He was winning by multiple shots. And just wheels came off a little bit. But Ludwig's winning one of these things. Whether it's this one, whether it's one next year, like, it's coming and it's coming soon. So I like parlaying Fleetwood, Hatton with something with Ludwig. Finishing high. Okay, a couple quick questions. Are PGA Tour guys not allowed to try to have YouTube channels like Bryson? Feels like showing your personality and promoting your own brand is a no-brainer. I'm pretty sure one of the big beefs Bryson had was because when you are a PGA Tour member, they own your media rights. And that's how they sell the television package. So the Saudis obviously have no television package that matters. Those guys can do whatever they want. Bryson was not allowed to do that, at least when he was on the PGA Tour. I don't know if they've changed those restrictions, but it's pretty clear that none of those guys do it. Now, how many of them would? I don't know. Maybe it's not as strict because Wesley Bryan, the Bryan brothers, who play a lot with Horvat, they're pretty entertaining. I mean, they're elite players. Wesley's, I mean, hell, he almost won a PGA Tour tournament this year, and George is damn good. He has one, so maybe they have loosened those restrictions, but I think they're very, very serious about that stuff. Very serious. I do think they've changed the restrictions because I watched on the Bryans channel, Wesley played 9 holes with Thigala at the Canadian Open. So maybe they've changed those rules. And maybe it's just simply like, is Xander or Cantlay going to get a YouTube channel? Scottie Scheffler going to create a YouTube channel? Part of creating a YouTube channel, it's like a part of having a podcast. Well, like, you got a podcast. And I think Scottie would say, like, I don't have time to do that. One thing Bryson has is a lot of time. Think of the other guy. Like, I think the Euros, like, if Fleetwood, Hatton's on live, Fleetwood, Lowry, and Rory and that crew did a little YouTube, and it'd probably be pretty entertaining. But get Bob McIntyre to do one, but I don't know. Do you think that Zalatoris will ever win a major? Once your back starts going, man, it's a major problem. Those back injuries are. Remember, Steve Kerr was the coach of the Warriors. The coach of the Warriors. And got back surgery and could not coach the Warriors. And he said it's the worst pain he'd ever been in. Literally had to take the year. Now, that was the year that they won 73 games and he came back late in the season. But I would say anyone that has a bad back and has to go under the knife, it's a problem. And I think I heard Will talk about it. I mean, he's been pretty open about it, that they've tried to change the swing a little bit to ease some of the tension off the back. But man, I mean, which sucks because Zalatoris, excellent player, fun player, was so much early success at these major championships. But I root for him, but it's hard to be bullish on his situation. What's your prediction for Scottie's career? This is from Christian. I personally think he's more in line with Phil, 30, 40 wins. How many wins does Scottie have right now? 12, 13? It's pretty hard to get to 30 because this run is not going to last forever. If he got to 40 wins in this day and age with the competition, and I get some of the guys deflected to live, but defected, not deflected. I think the major number is more realistic than like 35, 40 wins. I mean, look at Rory. How many wins does Rory have? 25? It's really, really hard to get to 30 wins. It's really, really hard. I could see Scottie, health permitting, 24 wins, but like 6 majors, 6, 7 majors. I think that's a pretty good comp. I think it's harder in this day and age to get the Phil career. I mean, Rory won a lot of majors earlier. Like, the tour's never been better. And part of it is the equipment. Now, once that equipment change happens, who knows? Does it actually ever happen? Because if it does, it will definitely change the game. And but you could argue if the equipment change happens, maybe it gets easier for the good players. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a great unknown. He's just hitting the ball farther than most guys and straighter. And he's a great iron player, and he's like a best chipper. His short game's so elite, and he's such a good iron player, maybe it wouldn't do much for him in terms of like neutralizing his ability and negatively impacting him. But if I had to guess right now, I would go, let's do a serious guess. I'll go 26 wins. So he doubles his career amount. I think he has 13. And I'll go, I think the major number is where it's at, though. I'll go 7 majors. Rory's got 4. I think Rory ends up at 5 or 6. I think right now you'd have to put the Rory major over under. Does he win 1.5 more? And I think you'd put the Scottie number at like, he's already got 2 at like 3.5. Okay, let's see if I got any more questions. It's actually become a lot easier to scroll on Instagram for the mailbag. Okay, we'll end on this. The PGA seems to be lacking personalities like Rahm and Bryson. Yeah, I mean, they took those 2 guys. For me, Bryson is the most interesting golfer to watch because of his game. And we know he is from, and we know him from the social media presence. In contrast, someone like Cantlay has 0 personality, and the tongue sticking out is unwatchable. I'm sure the producers cringe when they do a close-up of his face and his stupid tongue out. The PGA Tour needs more Bryson and less Cantlay. I think everyone agrees with you. I find the PGA and LIV unwatchable. Majors are all I pay attention to now because all of the big names are there together. It's kind of sad. This is the overarching conversation with the situation. There's no way around it. You need everyone back together. You need the boring guys are fine. The great boring players. Xander's boring. Scottie minus the arrest. Extremely boring. Like extremely boring. And Xander, Rory's a little more interesting. I mean, he's way more interesting than those 2 guys. But for the most part, like he, quote unquote, I don't even want to say controversial. He just started moving the needle a little bit around LIV. But before that, like, Rory's kind of boring. All like, you need great guys, you need assholes. You can't have any sport or any entertainment product with just unlimited, happy-go-lucky, easygoing, no controversy guys. You need some people to push the envelope. It's like a television show. You need characters you like, and you need characters you root against. If the only thing in a show is characters you like, probably end up turning it off. You need some people, whether it's a reality show, whether it's a, Apple TV, Presumed Innocence, good show. That prosecutor's kind of an asshole. You find yourself kind of rooting against him, but you don't know if the other guy killed the chick, and you're like kind of torn between. But you're emotionally moved by everybody. And I think the one thing LIV did a good job of is take away a lot of guys you're emotionally moved by. I remember being told this a long time ago in radio. The key to success is never being indifferent. Never being where they just don't care. They just have apathy towards you. If they hate you or love you, either way. Because guess what? Not everyone's going to love you. But if they hate you, they might still listen. Because guess what hate is? A powerful emotion. And a lot of people hated Patrick Reed. A lot of people hated Bryson. And now they love him. But they have a strong emotional connection. John Rahm, like, it's easy to see. Guy's a fucking nut out there. But kind of in an entertaining way. Same thing with Terrell Hatton. I mean, Patrick Reed is one of the dude cheats. The guy cheats. Phil Mickelson has gambled hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars. When you say Phil Mickelson, everyone has an opinion. Now, he's old and he's not as important in terms of his competitive ability anymore. But like, he kind of matters. Like I said with the Tiger thing, having Tiger just around, like, people are emotionally moved by the guy. Is like you said with Cantlay. There ain't a soul in America beside maybe his wife who's emotionally moved by that guy. Even Rory said, like, on one of my 3 putts, Cantlay just took forever. Threw me out of my routine. It's not really an excuse, but kind of understand it. Cantlay takes forever. Xander's dad is more interesting than Xander. You know why? Because he'll talk some shit. He'll say some stuff. He's got some takes. Whether you agree or disagree with them needing to be paid for the Ryder Cup, like, he fucking has a stance on it, And guess what? A lot of the live guys did too. Like, you need some guys that will draw a line in the sand and be like, yeah, I don't think this is right. And it feels like the PGA Tour has a lot of guys like, yeah, we'll just kind of go with the flow. So appreciate the questions. Let's have a good week and let's enjoy the Open.